Hello, my name is Steve Bowler, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at RIP version 2. In particular, with RIP version 2, we're going to be taking a look at how to filter routes using distribute lists within RIP version 2. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use three routers in our topology here. We're going to have router 1 and router 3 as the spoke sites, and router 2 is going to be the hub. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and enable RIP version 2 on all these networks, the 1 network, the 2 network, the 3 network, and then the 12 and 23 network. As you can see here, all these routers are connected using their Fast Ethernet interfaces. Router 1's Fast Ethernet 00 connects to router 2's Fast Ethernet 00. And then router 2's Fast Ethernet 01 is going to connect to router 3's Fast Ethernet 00. So let's go ahead and get started here. What I'll do is I'll just pause the video real fast and get the initial configuration set up here on the routers, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at how filtering is performed with RIP version 2 using distribute lists. Okay, so let's go into router 1 here, and let's go ahead and get it set up with the basic configuration, with the baseline configuration I should say. So let's go into the Fast Ethernet 00, put it in the 12 network, give it the .1 IP address, go ahead and do a no shut, then we'll go and create the loopback 0 interface here, 1.1.1.1/24, then we'll go under RIP, specify version 2, we'll do a no auto summary, and then we'll go ahead and advertise our networks into the RIP routing process. So we're going to put in our loopback, which is the 1 network, and then our directly connected interface to to router 2, which is network 192.168.12.0. Alright, router 1's done. Let's go to router 2. Configure the loopback 0 interface first here. So all 2's with the /24 subnet mask. We'll go under interface Fast Ethernet 00, which is connected to router 1. We'll give it the IP address of 192.168.12.2/24. Go ahead and do a no shut. Then we'll go under interface Fast Ethernet 01, which is connected to router 3. We'll give it the IP address of 192.168.23.2/24. We'll do a no shut there. And last, what we'll do is we'll go under the RIP routing process. We'll specify version 2. We'll do a no auto summary. And then we'll go ahead and do the network command for the 2 network. And then we'll go ahead and do the network command for the 192.168.12.0 and the 23.0. So what these commands are going to do is enable the RIP routing process for these networks. So we have the attached networks, the 12 network going to router 1 and the 23 network that's going to router 3. Then the 2 network, of course, is our loopback 0 interface on router 2 that we're advertising. Actually, yeah, the 2 network is what we're going to advertise into RIP. So right now, if I go to router 2, if I do a show IP route, you can see I can already see the RIP learned route from router 1. Let's go ahead and get router 3 configured, and then we'll go ahead and do some RIP version 2 filtering. So let's go into the loopback 0 interface. We'll do IP address 3.3.3.3/24. Then we'll go ahead under Fast Ethernet 00, and we'll give it the IP address of 192.168.23.3. Again, this is going to be a /24. Go ahead and do a no shut on the interface. Then we'll go under the RIP routing process here. We'll advertise these 2 networks in. So the 3 network we're going to advertise in, and then the 23 network, which is 192.168.23.0. Also, we want to specify version 2, and we want to also put in here no auto summary. Let's go back to router 1 just to make sure that okay, wasn't sure if I put no auto summary on router 1's RIP routing process, but I did. So At this point, what we should see here is we should have full reachability. So on router 3, I should be able to see router 1's loopback 0 interface, IP address, subnet mask. So let's go on to router 3. If I do a show IP route, as you can see, I can see now all the RIP-learn routes on router 3. So I can see the 2 network, which is attached to router 2, the 1 network, which is attached to router 1, and then the network between router 1 and 2. So I should have reachability now from router 3. If I source this from my loopback, and as you can see, I have reachability. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the whole reason for this lab, which is filtering with distribute lists. And what this is going to allow us to do, let's go ahead on the router 2. This is where we'll perform filtering first under RIP version 2 process. If I go under RIP, router RIP, and then I just do a question mark, what we can see here is that we have the configuration option for a distribute list, and this is the filter networks and routing updates. So if I go ahead and do this command, distribute list, what you can see is it gives us a lot of options here, and what we're going to be concerned with RIP version 2 here is these first 3 options here is our access lists. So we can specify standard ACL and extended ACL, or we can even put in here a named ACL. And so what I'm going to do here in this example is I'm going to filter router 1. It's sending us the 1 network. So I'm going to go ahead here and filter just this 1 network from router 1. And we're going to do this on router 2 by first we have to create an ACL for this. So what we can do is IP access list extended, and then we can just name this RIP from R1. And then under here, this is going to give us, actually, we don't even have to do an extended ACL for these examples here. So let's keep it simple. Let's stay out of the extended ACL range. We'll just do a standard ACL here, RIP from R1. Then we'll go under here, and if we want to specifically filter the loopback 0 interface, or the loopback 0 network from router 1 from reaching router 2, what we're going to have to do is deny this network and permit everything else. And the way we're going to do this is, first we created the standard ACL, a named standard ACL, which is RIP from R1. So then we're going to go under here and just do a deny statement. And let's see. Let's do this. If I do I'm going to do a debug here. Debug IP RIP. Now if I do a deny, might be too much stuff going on. Let's give it a second. Yeah, looks like we might have a little too much going on right now. If I do a deny, yeah. Let's do this. Let's take this debug off for now. We'll go back into the debug because I wanted to show you some stuff there. But first, what we want to do here is we want to classify what we want to deny. And again, what we want to do is we want to deny, in this example here, we're going to be denying based on incoming updates from router 1 to router 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an ACL called RIP from R1, and then we'll go ahead and create the deny statement here, which is going to be the network. So 1.1.1.0, and then here it's going to ask us for our wildcard mask. So we're going to do 0.0. Actually, you don't even have to put that, so we could leave it as is. But if we want to, we just put 0.0.0.0 and then do a log, and then we just want to do a permit any. Now if I do a show IP route on R2, you can see that I'm learning of the RIP route from R1. So now, if I go under the RIP routing process, so router RIP, then I do the distribute list command, and then the word. Again, this is going to be what we created here. So if you want to just copy that RIP from R1 and paste. And then this is going to be the direction. What do you want to filter? Do you want to filter incoming routing updates or outgoing routing updates? In this case, what we're doing on router 2 is we are filtering inbound from R1. Okay, RIP from R1. So we're going to be doing the in command here, or the in option. And what we'll do, again, I'll show you the out option later on in this lab. So first of all, we're going to be filtering incoming updates from R1. And now it's going to ask us for the interface in which to filter from. So here, again, on R2, the interface that's connected to R1 is Fast Ethernet 00. So I'm just going to put Fast Ethernet 00 in here, and then go ahead and hit enter. Now if I do a debug IP RIP, let's see if I can catch this stuff catch this process going on here. If I do a show IP route, you can see I can still see these networks. And here we go. This is exactly what we want to see. It received version 2 update. Actually, hold on. Too much going on. Received version 2 update from 12.1. Again, that's router 1's IP. And as you can see here, boom, right here, it hits access list log. And then it's hitting our ACL. RIP from R1, denied 1.1.1.0. So, as you can see here on router 2, if I do a show IP route, you can see that I'm still showing the network in the routing table. Now, you can see though the time is incrementing. If I do a show IP RIP database, you can see that this keeps incrementing. This you can see that this it keeps incrementing. So it looks like right now, if I try to ping that network now from R2, I still have reachability. So let's go ahead and do a show IP route again on R2. If I do a show IP, let's see here. Let's do the show IP access list. You can see that now my deny here is I'm getting matches here on this deny. So I'm actually getting hits on this ACL. It's matching under the distribute list. So if I do a show IP protocols on R2, I can see now that I am filtering on Fast Ethernet 00, filtered by RIP from R1. So now what you can see here in our database here is it says possibly down because the hold down timer has expired. I can still ping it. If I go to R3 though and take a look, if I do a show IP route on R3, you can see that that network is not in router 3's database. If I try to ping it now, you can see router 3 is dead in the water. Router 3 has no idea how to get to the 1 network now. And let's do this. Let's go ahead and try to jumpstart this process here on router 2. If I do a clear IP route asterisk, let's go ahead and clear the routing table and get this 1 network out of our routing table. So now you can see router 2 does not know how to reach the 1 network. And now on router 2, if I try to ping it, as you can see, it's not replying. Again, that's the easiest way to filter with a distribute list using RIPv2. All we did was we created an ACL which denied the network in which we wanted to filter. In this case, it was the 1 network from router 1. Everything else we were allowing through. So if I do a show run pipe to begin RIP on router 2, we'll go ahead and just take a look at this configuration set here in which we did under our RIP routing process. We just implemented the distribute list feature, and then we called, within the distribute list, we called our ACL that we created, which was RIP from R1. Within this ACL, RIP from R1, all we were doing was denying the 1 network from router 1, and then we're allowing everything else in. And then after calling this named ACL, we were given the option for inbound or outbound filtering. Again, we were going to filter inbound from R1, so that's why we chose the in command option. And then the last thing it said was, what interface are we going to be performing this filtering on? And then we specified the interface fast Ethernet 00, which is going to our neighbor router 1. So as you can see here, we no longer see the 1 network in the routing table on R2. We are successfully filtering the 1 network from entering router 2's routing table. And then we went to router 3 here. We did a show IP route on router 3, and as you can see, we're not seeing it as well on router 3. So again here, this is inbound filtering using distribute list feature under RIPv2. Now if we go to router 1, we create another loopback interface here. So interface loopback 11, let's say it's IP address 11.11.11.11/24. We go under RIP and we advertise this network into RIP. Now what we should see on router 2 is we should see this network in router 2's routing table. If I go ahead and try to ping it, I have reachability here. Now on router 3, if I look here, we can see that router 2 is passing router 3 the RIP route. And as you can see, I can ping from router 3 as well the 11 network. And that is again because with the filtering that we're doing from router 1, inbound from router 1, we are just filtering the 1 network and not the 11 network. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our last type of filtering here using the distribute list with RIPv2 in this lab, what we're going to do is, and what we see here is that router 2 is advertising the 2 network into our RIP domain, and it's sending it to router 3 and router 1. So let's go to router 1. If I do a show IP route, you can see that let's do the show IP route RIP to get more specific and see the RIP routes. You can see that I'm learning of the 2 network through router 2, and I can ping it from router 1. Also on router 3, if I do a show IP route RIP, I am also receiving the 2 network from router 2, and I have reachability. However, let's say for some reason what we want to do is we want to filter the 2 network from getting to router 3. However, for some reason in our lab we are not able to perform filtering on router 3. It has to be done on router 2. If this is the case, what we can do, instead of doing inbound filtering like we did in our last example where we filtered routes inbound from router 1 to router 2, what we can do here now in this example is filter using the distribute list feature outbound. So what we'll do on router 2 is we'll create an ACL matching the 2 network, and we will filter this outbound to router 3. So we will send this route to router 1. However, we will not send this route to router 3. Okay, so let's go to router 2. Let's create the ACL first. So it's going to be IP access list standard, and then the name here is going to be RIPv2 R3. And then under here we're going to do a simple deny statement. So we're going to deny the 2.2.2.0, and then we're going to put the wildcard mask of 0.0.0.255, and then we'll just log it so we can see this action taking place here. And then again, what we want to do, because if we don't specify this, if we don't do a permit any, what we're going to do is we're going to implicitly deny everything here if we leave the ACL as it is. Because we got to remember, all ACLs by default have an implicit deny at the end, unless if it's otherwise specified with a permit any. So we'll go ahead and do a permit any. Let's do a show debug. Okay, so we have no RIP filtering going on. I'm sorry, no RIP debugging going on at the moment. I'll go ahead and change that in a second. So if I do a show access list here on router 2, we are going to be using this ACL here, RIPv2 R3, where we're denying our loopback network from getting to R3. We're going to do this by going into RIP and doing the distribute list command. So we're going to do distribute list, and then it's going to ask us for the name. We're going to do RIPv2 R3. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and highlight this. Actually, we'll do this distribute list question mark. It's going to ask us for the word. Let's go do RIPv2 R3. Let's highlight that and paste it. And then what we're going to do here, which we didn't do in the last example, is we're going to do outbound filtering. So anything that matches this ACL, we're going to be filtering outbound. So RIPv2 R3 out, and then it's going to ask us for the interface. So we're going to do here fast Ethernet 0.1. As you can see here, our fast Ethernet 0.1 on R2 is connected to router 3. So we'll go ahead and do this command here. Then we'll do a debug IP RIP on R2. And we'll see if we can see this filtering taking place on R2 with its updates that it's sending. And there we have it. It's that simple here. So what you can see here is we're sending our version 2 update via multicast out to our Fast Ethernet 01, which is router 3. And then you can see here it's tripping the ACL, or basically it's hitting the distribute list, and the distribute list is saying, wait a second, we are denying the 2 network outbound on this interface to this neighbor. So if we go to router 3 now, if we do a show IP route, you can see that we are still seeing the 3 network. I'm sorry, the 2 network. However, you can see here that our timer is incrementing for the network. So we'll give it a minute here, and what we'll see is the hold down timer is going to expire. Then we got to wait for the flush. If I do a show IP protocol, we're going to have to wait for the flush after 240 seconds, which is approximately 4 minutes. So what we will see here on router 3 is we will probably have reachability to the 2 network for the next 2 minutes, roughly, until this route gets flushed out of router 3's routing table. What we will see though after the 3-minute mark is we will see the hold down timer will have been exceeded, and we'll see the network go to possibly down in the routing table. Let's do a debug IP RIP on router 2. If I do a show IP access lists, you can see here now that my ACL is being incremented for the 2 network now. So now on router 3, if I do a show IP route, still got a little time left there. So what we should see here in these RIP updates is we still should see the version 2 updates being sent out to Fast Ethernet 00 with the 2 network, as we see here. Now on router 3, if I do a show IP route, you can see here now that we're seeing in the routing table as the 2 networks being possibly down. Again, that's because the hold down timer has been exceeded, and in less than a minute here we should see this RIP route out of the routing table. Let's go ahead and do an extended ping here, and we'll see this ping timeout here in a minute. After this RIP route is flushed out of our routing table due to being inaccessible, and now you can see that we are getting timeouts with our ping. So if we go ahead and do a show IP route on router 3, as you can see, we no longer see the 2 network in router 3's routing table. However, if we go back to router 1, if I do a show IP route, as you can see, router 1 is still seeing the 2 network being learned via RIP from router 2, and I can still ping it here. Oops. So what we've done is we have effectively implemented filtering within RIP version 2 using distribute lists. I showed you how to do this inbound and both outbound. What we did was we filtered the loopback 0 network on router 1. Actually, let's go to router 1 here real fast. If I do a show IP interface brief. Okay. Just to give you guys this for clarity, we did also add the 11 network in here. So what we did here is we filtered the loopback 0 network, which was the 1 network from router 1 from entering router 2's routing table, and also that network now was not being advertised to router 3. So we filtered the one network from being added to router 2 and router 3's routing table, and we did that by doing a distribute list inbound on router 2, on router 2's fast Ethernet 00 interface, actually under the RIP process. So if we could do a show run pipe to begin RIP, I'll go ahead and show you this real fast here, the distribute list command that we used. Again, we used the named ACL RIP from R1, and we did inbound filtering, inbound from fast Ethernet 00, which is from router 1. And this named ACL again called the one network to be denied, and it permitted everything else. And that is why we could still see the 11 network all throughout the domain here. Then our next feature, what I showed you, is how to filter RIP routes using distribute list outbound. And what we did here in this scenario is we had to implement outbound distribute list filtering to router 3. So router 3 wouldn't get the 2 network, however router 1 still had reachability. And we weren't able to do this on router 3. So what we did was we went under router 2, we created a distribute list named RIP2R3, and the direction we did this was outbound, and the interface was going to router 3, which is fast Ethernet 00. And then under RIP2R3, all we did was we denied the 2 network, which is our loopback0 interface, and then we permitted everything else. And then what we saw here is that we saw, if we do a show IP route on router 3, we no longer see the 2 network anywhere in router 3's routing table. However, we went to router 1 and did a show IP route, and we are still seeing the 2 network on router 1's routing table. We again verified connectivity, and so that's it, guys. That is filtering, basic filtering using distribute lists within RIP version 2. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll be with me with the next one. Thanks.